Hello everyone. Today we're talking about a very typical sabotage pattern, one of those reasons why you might unconsciously not really want to come out of your depression yet, because you still have a very specific fear. And today it's about the topic, fear of your own greatness. Welcome to Soul Tapping. Today it's about the fear of your own greatness. What could be meant by that? Most people with depression are afraid of their own smallness. That is, they are afraid of not being good enough, they have low self-esteem, and somehow feel that they cannot meet the demands of this world. But I believe there is also a completely different fear, which is of a very different nature. Namely, when it really comes down to becoming completely healthy, leaving your problems behind, leaving your depression behind, leaving your exhaustion behind, being fully healthy again, being powerful, coming into your own full strength, greatness, and power. That means becoming authentic, becoming exactly as you truly are, and letting your inner self shine and radiate outward. Feel into it. I believe there are many people who are afraid of this and who may have never really become aware of it. And for that, I have brought you today 10 typical reasons, one of my nice lists of 10. Again and again, 10 typical fears of your own greatness, and how you might recognize it so that you can just, while you listen to me, you can feel a bit into whether this might be, in an unconscious way, could also apply to you. I brought a really nice quote. I believe it is attributed to Nelson Mandela. As far as I know, it actually comes from Marianne Williamson. And it goes, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Feel into what it does to you. Okay, here are my 10 reasons for the fear of stepping into your own greatness, being authentic, and maybe even living your calling. Point number 1 is the fear of visibility. So, when you think about being authentic, oh my God, showing myself exactly as I am. I'm so bad, I'm not good enough, I'm not perfect enough, I might be embarrassing or something like that. That's not possible at all. So, if I become visible and not with my typical everyday mask on, as we like to say today, with my facade on, but with how I really am, I can only embarrass myself. I must not make myself visible under any circumstances. Coming into my greatness would mean if I let my light shine. What light? At all, that's not possible. And if I show myself as I am, then I am also vulnerable. So then I expose myself to possible criticism. And I couldn't handle that at all. Because there's a good reason why I hide behind different roles. But if you are completely honest with yourself, it's not a nice feeling to have to hide behind roles, to have to hide your own truth, to have to hide your own self. And that's why I could only encourage you to become the person you truly are. So, I always wished to become the person I would have normally become if my biography, all my difficulties, hadn't gotten in the way. And now, over the many years of my therapy, I am actually on the way to becoming that person, and it feels really good. So, you can learn this. You can learn and practice becoming visible and thereby becoming authentic and stepping into your own greatness. Point 2. Fear of arrogance. So, you might still have this old belief internally that you are somehow worthless or something like that. and that you absolutely must not make yourself bigger than you are. So, when it is said, step into your greatness, and you believe you have no real greatness within you lying dormant, then you naturally think that you're somehow getting carried away, and that you will become arrogant, and that others might think the same of you. And it could very well be related to the fact that as children, we often heard from adults, whether parents or teachers, the phrase, now stay grounded. So, as soon as we, as children, perhaps discovered our own abilities and really wanted to live them out and show them, and were proud of ourselves, then it was said, wait a minute, no showing off here. Showing off in front of others is not something you do, stay humble. Back then, it might have felt silly, but we accepted it. And over the years or decades, we learned that one should remain humble. And that self-love would mean being self-absorbed and arrogant. And we definitely don't want to come across that way. And, of course, we don't want to be that way either. So, many people with depression have an incredibly devoted, self-sacrificing, and loving side with which they help others. And maybe you feel the same way, and maybe you're afraid that you'll lose that side of yourself, that you really become an arrogant jerk. But I'm telling you, that won't happen. Well, I myself, also, I didn't think it was possible before to come into my power and my greatness. By now, I feel that it is possible. And this fear is completely unfounded. The opposite is true. So, I feel the same way. The more I come into my greatness and my power, the greater the need becomes to help other people. That's why I'm doing this YouTube channel. So you don't need to be afraid at all of becoming arrogant or that anyone would think that of you. Well, I don't know. I don't think you think that of me. Maybe you do think that. Yes, coming into one's own power has nothing to do with arrogance. So, don't worry. Point 3. It's a bit similar. It's the fear of envy. Some time ago, I received a postcard with a beautiful, glittery postcard saying on it, Itzal, don't let anyone dull your sparkle just because it blinds others. And I found that somehow very telling. I believe that many people feel this way, especially women. It's a typical women's problem that we don't dare to show our own light and radiance to the world because we think that others might feel belittled by it or somehow feel offended or insulted, or that they simply become envious, and that they then criticize and reject us because our light might blind others. And no one wants to attract people's envy, so it's better to stay modest. That's a bit like the other point, but let's say if you're maybe afraid of losing people who are dear to you. How valuable are those people to you if they reject and leave you just because you let your light shine? And maybe you can lead by example in a positive way. So please don't let anyone take away your sparkle. It might be that others feel dazzled by it and find it annoying. But that's not on you, it's on them, because they're not there yet, because they would also like to be at that point. That's how feelings of envy might arise. And as we saw recently with the forbidden feelings, it's completely okay to have feelings of envy. Everyone has the task of somehow dealing with their own feelings. And if others become envious of you because you stand there so beautifully healthy, powerful, and tall, then it's their task to deal with their feelings of envy. That has nothing to do with you, so that's not a reason. Don't let anyone take away your sparkle. Okay. The fourth point is called fear of presumption. Could it be that you have a belief inside you that goes something like, I don't deserve this? This is common among people who had very dominant and authoritarian parents who were often belittled and later transferred this pattern to their partners, bosses, and other people. This pattern of making themselves small because they feel safer and more loved, and perhaps attach themselves to someone who seems to be on a pedestal, on a throne. Feel into whether it might be the case for you, that perhaps you always experienced your parents as sitting on such a throne. Then you have the feeling, if I come into my own greatness and strength, then I will end up better off than my parents. I could surpass my parents, and I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not entitled to that. So, this also goes a bit hand in hand with this feeling of, I must remain humble. You are not. You are not in a hierarchy below anyone. That's just a feeling. So, it is not presumptuous to live your own potential, to recognize the abilities that have been given to you, and to fully live them out. That is in no way presumptuous. You have a right to it. To live your abilities, to tap into your potential, and to embrace your greatness. Okay, and if you still have an issue with that, it would be a good thing to work on. To boost your self-esteem, take a look and see if there might be someone in your environment where you feel like they are above you and you must not surpass them. Okay, the fifth point is fear of responsibility. When you are fully in your power, you are no longer trapped in your depression, in your feelings of powerlessness, in your sense of helplessness, but you are fully energized and in your strength again. It could be that you are afraid of having so much decision-making power because you are not used to having all possibilities open to you. And that brings with it a responsibility. That you feel you must always make the right decisions. And you should make even fewer mistakes, and you must also be able to stand by these decisions. And I believe there are many people who are somehow afraid of this because having power over your own life and making your own decisions carries the potential for mistakes. So the more you decide for yourself, the higher the likelihood that you will make mistakes. And of course, we don't want that because making mistakes is not acceptable. So this inability, because I'm so poor and I'm such a victim, and I'm so helpless, and I'm so depressed. It may not feel nice, but in a certain way, it feels safe. Because not being able to also means in a certain way not having to. And then nothing can happen to you. You can't make any mistakes. It reminds me a bit, this aspect of those crying babies. Maybe you are also such a crying baby, I don't know. So, there are newborns who just cry. Because they somehow can't cope with the fact that the confinement of the womb is suddenly gone. That this protection is no longer there. That their arms and legs have space they can't handle. So, there's a therapy where these babies are wrapped very tightly. And then they calm down because they finally can't get away again and are finally back in that safety. You can just tune in to see if anything resonates with you. If you somehow resonate with it. This applies to all these points anyway. These are just suggestions, just ideas of what it could be. And if it's deep in your subconscious, then you'll notice it. If something in you somehow clicks or something. So your task is simply to listen and feel if this is something that might be right for you. Point 6 is a bit of an escalation of that, namely, it's the fear of abuse of power. So, you might, when you are completely healthy again and fully in your strength and power, are in control of your life, then you might misuse your power and potentially harm or hurt others. It could be that this is such a fear. For example, there's a theory that women who always keep their fingernails short do so because they fear hurting others, that they do it because they don't want to extend their claws. Or if your teeth fall out. If you have bad teeth, it means you don't want to bite properly, because you're afraid of these aggressions and because you're afraid of hurting others. And that could be one aspect. That you're afraid of losing your grounding, becoming delusional, because you're not used to having so much power and greatness that you can't handle it and that you might not need your power. I believe that in this case, if you realize, oh yes, somehow this could apply to me, then it might be a good idea to try a reincarnation therapy session. So, it's quite possible that in a previous life we terribly abused our power and hurt other people, and that still lingers with us as a soul. If this has never happened to you in this life, it might have been in a previous life, just as an idea. So, such things exist. That might sound a bit spooky if you've never heard of it, but such things do exist. Okay, point 7 is the fear of performance pressure. Many people have this, not just those with depression, but all of us in our society. So, it's a bit about, as I just mentioned, with the calling. So when you truly come into your power, fully realize your potential, discover your abilities, and become yourself and authentic, then ultimately it's also about finding your calling. So, truly living your mission that you came here with, letting your light shine. And it might be that when you discover your calling, it puts a lot of pressure on you because you think, oh God, I have to achieve something really big and bring it into the world. I have to do something great and maybe I can't meet those expectations. But that's not true. So when I say you have a mission here, it sounds like you should save the world all by yourself. Of course, that's not true. Your mission essentially consists of simply being yourself. Every person has their place here, which is important and rightfully theirs. And every person is here to do exactly what only you can do, because only you are you. No one else can do it as well as you can. That's your mission. That's all it is. It doesn't mean you have to take up a new profession or somehow, whatever it may be, save the world. You don't have to do that at all. Instead, reignite your light, unpack it, and clear away all the clutter around it with the beliefs and all the feelings that are still sticking around. Getting rid of all that, bringing your light back to shine, being yourself, and with that, you already fulfill your mission. Gosh, enough. If thoughts like, sure, the world has definitely been waiting for me, come to you, it might be that such things come out, tap on them directly. Those are just beliefs. You're not somehow different from any other great people. It just feels that way. You're not used to living that way because you've made yourself small, because somehow, I don't know, maybe through misunderstandings, you've learned that you're worth less. But that's bullshit. That's not true. It's simply not true. You are just as valuable as everyone else. Okay, the 8th point is also very important. If you imagine coming back fully into your power, that means really getting rid of the problems you have now, getting rid of your depression. Then it might be that you suddenly fall into a kind of void. So point 8 is the fear of sudden emptiness. Suddenly there's nothing, and you think, oh God, for God's sake, don't take my problems away. I don't even know who I am then. What am I supposed to do all day? So many people fully identify with their problems or their depression, especially if they've had them for a very, very long time. And when you come back into your power and your greatness, then the depression is gone. What then is the purpose of your life? You've been completely occupied with your fears and whatever else. That can be an unconscious fear that you'll fall into a void where there's nothing left. I know this from the club sessions with many of my clients. When they have suppressed their problems or, let's say, their feelings, then suddenly there's a feeling of emptiness. And they think. It's a bit frightening at first to be stuck in such emptiness, but you don't have to interpret it as something negative, rather. It's a field full of possibilities. You can see it as something positive. You now have the opportunity to reshape your life and fill this emptiness with what you want, as you would like it to be. So, if you've tapped away anger, sadness, or fear, and suddenly there's nothing left, then you can choose what you want to fill this void with. For example, with joy, with love, with hope, with anticipation, with enthusiasm, with trust, with courage. There are so many beautiful, positive feelings that you can put in its place. You don't need to be afraid of the void. Point 9 is the fear of loss. That means it's something that many people with depression have. It also goes hand in hand with the fear of disappointment. If you dare to step into your power and your greatness, in other words, to be successful, to come out of your depression at all, and then it doesn't work out, or you fall back again, you surely know this, you've probably experienced it many times, when you felt a bit better, then suddenly, bam, you're right back. You fall into old patterns and bad states. And that you feel like, now I've worked so hard and put so much effort into myself, and now it's being taken away from me again. Then, because you fear this fearing so much that it could be taken away from you again, you don't even try. You don't want to be successful, you don't want to step into your power out of sheer fear that in the end it won't work out and that the success will pass by again. And that in the end, you sit exactly where you are sitting now and think, damn. So, I believe we have to accept that setbacks are part of it. I've made my own videos about it. I also have a tapping session on my channel specifically on this topic of setbacks or relapses. We can interpret it differently. It's not a relapse, but we can simply accept that the path to healing from depression occurs in phases. Completely normal. And it has a bit to do with letting go. When something beautiful happens in our lives and we don't dare to enjoy it out of fear that it will end again. Yeah, so what? That's life. Life is always like that. Life is in flow. It is in a constant flow and everything passes again. The beautiful and the ugly. Everything comes and goes. If we make that clear to ourselves, if we become aware of it, then it's okay. Then we don't need to be afraid of it. And I tell you, if you dare once to come back into this strength, no one can take that away from you. This progress that you make, no one can take that away from you. Even if you should fall back into a dark phase again afterward, which can naturally happen because it's normal, no one can still take this success away from you because you don't fall as deep as the last times. You fall to a higher level. You don't fall all the way to the ground anymore. That means the next dark phase won't last as long and won't be as deep. So, dare yourself, go ahead and be brave. And the 10th point, this is the biggest fear we all have, those of us who are somehow involved with personal development and healing and such, namely the fear of change. So, that's also an identity thing. If you've thought your whole life, for decades, that you're the small one, the weak one, or the shy one, or that you're the total failure, or whatever you thought of yourself, then you fully identified with that. You think that this is absolutely the truth. And if someone then tells you, step into your greatness, step into your power, you think, what? Me. So, you would have to completely turn your entire self-image around. And that would mean a big change. That would bring about some changes. It sounds quite nice. Yes, stepping into my greatness, but what is that? Who am I then? What is that then? And it would affect many areas of life, your career, your relationships, everything. If you suddenly discover that you are actually much greater, more wonderful, and more powerful than you always thought, that can be frightening at first. Because then you don't even know, yes, being authentic, okay, but who am I? How does one be authentic? Because I don't even know who I really am. That can be frightening. And if you've kept yourself small your whole life because you thought that's how it has to be, or because it felt safer, then there's initially fear of change. But all of that can be overcome. It's not necessary to remain stuck in the fear of change. That simply means we need a lot of time and patience to get out of it again. Yes, if you truly want to become healthy, strong, and powerful again, to leave your depression completely behind, then that means change. There's no way around it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a change on the outside. It can also just be a change on the inside. That might already be enough that you turn you up. It's simply not easy that you change your self-image and learn to think and believe differently about yourself and the world. It's a process. It doesn't happen quickly, but it is possible. Okay, those were my 10 points, my 10 fears about stepping into your own greatness. Feel free to write in the comments if any point resonated with you, or if you could gain any insight from this video. I would be happy to hear about it. You are also welcome to like my video or subscribe to my channel, or if you feel like it, feel free to join my Facebook page. Group. Love yourself because you are wonderful. I wish you all the best. Goodbye.